I don't know your story. So can
No, I
we?
think you should start with asking Mike and how he got into his business and then how he drugged John into it.
Okay, perfect. Let's
So
start there. How did that happen? Give us the story.
Yeah, sure. And dragging John in was the strategy all along. But absolutely, I own a company called DPG Partners, which is in the hotel and hospitality business. We own select service hotels like Courtyard and Hilton Garden Inn and things like that. And really, it started out, I was looking for an office and started trying to find a spot. I worked in a situation where I traveled all the time, couldn't find a flex workspace or something that worked for me. So I decided to build one north of Dallas in Prosper, Texas, and bought some property, had no idea what I was doing, and started trying to figure it out. And we built our first property, about a 40,000 square foot office building with a couple of long-term tenants in it and about 30,000 square feet of flex workspace in it.
You went straight to 30,000 feet.
Yeah, straight to, yeah.
You're like, I need an office. We're doing 30,000 feet. Okay.
well, it gets better. It was 30,000 feet in a 45,000 square foot building.
Okay. Yeah, it started out, I needed about 4,000, 4,500 square feet for my office. And I thought, well, why not? Let's just get bigger with it. But what I realized, I felt like there was an underserved market. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. I felt like I needed an office. Surely there's other people like me that need an office. I was believing and hoping, more or less. And so we expanded it and decided to try to build a brand. And we created, originally it was Fuse Dynamic Workspace. And then John came on and said, Mike, it's too long. We've got to shorten that.
Pick out the dynamic. We are not that dynamic. Pull it out.
Stop being dynamic immediately.
Yes.
But, that was John's contribution. He said, remove one word and you're in good shape. But at any rate, so we built our first one, Fuse now. Then it built 2 other locations, one in Houston. Then we built another one in Austin, Texas, suburb of called Bee Cave out near Lake Travis. We have another one opening in the Austin suburb of Dripping Springs in January, maybe the end of the year. And then we have another one in the Austin suburb, Austin 4 Points area, and that we're developing. We've since sold Fuse Prosper. It just made sense. Worked with another great group that's out of Dallas, and it made sense for us. And then we're focusing on Austin development and growth right now of the suburbs of Austin. So is that long-winded? Did that cover it, Jamie? How'd that cover?
I mean, we're just getting started, Mike.
Great.
So how far, when you say suburban, how far out of downtown?
Closer to Oklahoma than Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned I had never been in the co-work business or anything like that, or even the office business prior to open first one. And a guy called it, he said, that's great. It's co-work on the prairie. And that's really what it felt like when we first built it.
I can picture the, like, whatever, the rolling, the tumbleweed.
Pretty much. Yeah, very much so. But we're about, GWA last year was in Frisco, and we're probably about 10, 15 minutes north of that location. So it's in one of the rapidly growing suburbs of Dallas was the first. And then the others out in the suburbs of Austin are, maybe 15, 20 miles, but it could be a 45-minute to an hour and a half drive into the central business district. So we like that. We like being out in the suburbs. That's kind of our niche, kind of a neighborhood co-working facility. And so that's our current strategy.
And that was pre-COVID even. You were never going to go CBD.
Yeah, we just looked at it, and to us, it looked like a crowded space. We also own our own assets and real estate. And so building these, our wheelhouse is that 30,000 square foot office boutique building out in the suburb. So it just makes sense for us to be out in the burbs. Less competition, but it's also an emerging spot and business place. So.
Okay, one more question before we go figure out how John got dragged into this with his unique background. Sure. The 30,000 feet, not many people go 30,000 immediately, especially when they don't really know the model. But I'm guessing your hotel background said you need some scale. You need to, can you just talk about kind of how you knew to go big or go home right off the bat?
How you knew?
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't know. It seemed smaller than the hotel projects I was working on.
Right. So it's like the relativity thing, right? You're like, well, a hotel, what's the square footage of a typical hotel that you would do?
On a select service or limited service hotel like a Hampton, it may be 55 or 60,000 square feet. It's a little more capital intensive than an office building because you got so much to build out.
Yeah.
But we, ignorance and luck just kind of helped getting us there to where we were going. I mean, I'll be honest, it wasn't that strategic on our first one, but we realized that there is an underserved market. And so for the size, we felt like it needed to be large enough to, to make it worth our while, to cover the cost of labor, to cover the cost, everything else. If we're going 20 to 40,000 square feet, we're really not adding much more staff. So it made sense to us to be able to get it to cash flow and cover the note. That cost was fixed. So.
Okay.
So I'll jump in here. The best part about this conversation is that, like I said before we started recording, these two guys are not just clients but great friends. So you'll experience some of that friction and fun that we have. So my first time meeting Mike was I was called by a broker or really developer that I was doing work with here that said, "Hey, I'd love for you to meet a friend of mine." And before you know it, we walked into Maggiano's together to break bread. Do you remember that? The look on your face is like you don't remember. And so it's funny. I asked Mike, "So why do you want to get in this space?" He gave me the same spiel about Prosper, and he goes, "Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I run hotels. My inventory dies every single night. If I can get someone to commit for 30 days, I'm in." Right. And so
that seemed fantastic to me. Yeah, absolutely. So
I think that's the beauty of sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? You don't realize, I mean, when you compare those two, it makes a lot of sense, as opposed to, I think in a lot of cases, we're coming to the front from office brokers and developers, and people in that industry are going, "What do you mean? I'm not getting a 5, 7, 10-year lease. I'm only getting 30 days or 12 months. It's the opposite, right? So it's so interesting how it's all perspective. And so Mike's perspective actually helped in how quickly and how big he jumped in, right? Because he looked at it completely different. And back to it is his hotels are 45 to 55,000 feet. I mean, I'm pretty confident. Mike, you used the same architect for that office building as your hotel, correct?
Yeah, we did. And it was a learning experience for both of us. So we were both brand new on number one, found a lot of mistakes out there that we're trying to learn from and not do again. So,
and then I don't think I know this timeline. At what point did you and John have the conversation? Before you and I did, or after?
It was probably if I wasn't under construction yet, it was after. John was in another field, and we were friends and had known each other. And John was mentioning changing careers and what he was doing. And I think he and I were having breakfast, and I just asked him, "John, if you could do anything, what would it be?" And he shared with me this great place in Atlanta that was a flex workspace and meeting place facility, and I had the property.
Shut the front door.
Oh.
Yeah, and I had the property. I had the property under contract at that point to buy the land to do this, and I hadn't quite figured it out yet. And it was one of those meetings where I was like, "Wait a minute, he's thinking about a career change." I think I went home and told my wife, "I can't believe what John said. He wants to get in this business that we're about to do." And I didn't tell John at the time. I let it set for a while because I really wanted to see, is that what he wants to do? I didn't want to entice him because I had no idea if this was going to make money or would be a viable business plan. And so I let it set for a little while, went back to John a little while later, and he was saying, "Yeah, this is what I want to do." And I said, "Well, John, funny you should mention that. I just bought some land and I'm about to do this." So that's kind of how is that fair, John?
Yeah.
And I said, "It's got to be called dynamic." And he said, "You'll get rid of that part of it."
Yeah.
Deal breaker.
Okay. And I love it how he's so secret, right? He had a different career. He didn't just have a different career. The guy worked for Jesus, and Mike took him off the pulpit. So literally this guy was on mission and ministry, and Mike was like, "You know what? I think you can help me a whole lot more than you can help those people."
But this was divine intervention. It's what he wanted to do. And then Mike shows up, and the big guy, was
I
at
feel really
play
bad.
here.
John was serving Jesus. He was serving the world. He was a pastor. He was leading in ministry.
Chaplain.
And here I am going, let's go make money. Come on, join me. So I felt really bad. I was
No, let's go build community in a different way. That's what you
See,
want.
that goes back to perspective. I see
let's let John talk.
capitalistic greed and UT service. I mean, all right, whatever. We'll let him have that one.
But I want to hear John's version of the story now. I want to hear, what was it that you saw that you wanted to be a part of?
Well, first of all, Mike is the next best thing to Jesus. And so it wasn't a huge
wow.
It was a huge
By the way, I've been in meetings with Mike where we walk on, he goes, I don't believe it. If that's the case, I'm the Pope. So yes, I guess close enough. I don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Like Mike said, he and I connected through actually a Bible study that was meeting at a local golf club. And at the time I was a pastor, I was senior pastor at the kind of the downtown long historied Baptist church. And I had this little group of guys that I was meeting with that none of them went to the church that I was pastoring. And it was a really neat opportunity for me just to be me. You know, I wasn't the pastor, I was a guy.
Yeah.
And they knew what I did, but yeah, that's how Mike and I met. Our kids were in the same school as well. So there were several connections. Prosper is not a big town, especially back in 2014, like 10,000 people. I have a background in ministry. I was in Atlanta, Georgia for 11 years. And when I was in Atlanta, I got hooked up with Rome. Rome, I can't remember what the rest of it is, just Rome, straight up Rome. And we were doing events at Rome, and I walked into that first one down there in near where I lived, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is the future.
Was that the one in Alpharetta?
Alpharetta, exactly, right by the train station. Yep.
And it was their first one, which they probably would say the same things Mike said, like, oh, let's not talk about the first one.
Well, same thing, super unique overlap there on the background. So you have the two founders of Rome is the Days Inn, one of the Days Inn heirs, and Chick-fil-A former executive. So very much hospitality driven, but they have an incredible culture, just like the one Mike and John have built of service and giving back and really people centric.
Wait, but I want to hear, John, what, like, you're a pastor, but you just like, you're so interested in what was it that,
hey, this is where you talk about legacy business.
Oh
my God, Gio.
Thank you, Gio, for that plug there and endorsement, I hope. Yeah, what we were doing in Rome, at Rome, was these kind of outreach groups. Rome was very friendly, obviously, if you know their background. They are Christian men, and we were doing some things that were related to what I was doing. And I just got a real vision for what I kind of called the church in the community. As a pastor, it's kind of hard to get people to come to your church. You know, that's a bit of a scary leap if you're kind of new. But we were doing these things in what third spaces is really the best way to describe it. Y'all know what third spaces are, coffee shops and places that are neutral. And we were doing these events at Rome. And I thought two things. One, for ministry, this is amazing. I actually was looking at the original Rome location to do a church plant, the very same space, second floor in that retail area. And so when they moved in,
What's
I was
a plant, like a satellite?
Yeah, a brand new congregation, maybe a new name, new area. And I loved that space, that very particular space. Used to be a furniture store. I was looking at it, we were looking at it, and then Rome came in and took it. And I thought, well, okay, this is kind of divine intervention, if you will. They're doing the thing that I kind of had a thought about, but I was toying around with the idea of a church that actually was like a co-working place.
Mm-hmm.
Did business during the week, and on the weekends when the co-working place is shut down, well, the church just happens to meet there. And boy, the economics of that model are so much better. Plus it's in a third space. It's in a neutral environment. So I was having all these thoughts way back, even decades ago. I was having
decades ago.
Well, I don't mean to overplay it, but yeah, like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm 30.
He was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time.
I had a vision for a coffee shop in College Station where I was doing ministry that had offices for like Campus Crusade for Christ, or what they call Crew now, some of the ministries, maybe some business people that helped pay for it. But on the weekends, it was a church. And so, yeah, that was kind of my original thing, pitched it, the offices and all that. And then literally 20 years later, here I am kind of doing it in some regard.
Yeah. And I think and for me, because I had this discussion with my wife, Tamara, and she and I were talking, well, could John run this business for us? And that was because what's his background? And absolutely, the answer is yes. But if you look at what he did in his ministry work, which was building fellowship, building community, developing a congregation, and it's a community of followers in a church. But I felt that was critical from what I was seeing in flex workspace environments. How do we build community? How do we build it? And I couldn't think of anyone better that is building community in that world. And so I felt like it could really apply. And John has a business background, although it was at Texas A&M, but still an okay school. But
just so Jamie, that means it doesn't really count. It's...
Yeah. But so I felt like he had both business acumen, but also the ability to build community and run this business. And aces on all parts of that is John's background, so he's terrific at that. And John also kind of very clear. He said, Mike, I want to do this thing, which was Legacy Network, which he does. He meets with business leaders and people, and they kind of do a in-depth study in a year. And it's an accountability, it's an encouragement, it's still a ministry aspect, which is very important to John. It's a nonprofit that he does. And so, I was totally on board, and he did that the first couple of years in Fuse and in our offices today that we're in. So it just seemed like it worked on all aspects of it. And it's just been a great fit and been a good solution for both of us. So.
That is such an interesting story. And John, I run a program called the Coworking Startup School, and I've had recently 2 groups come in with the whole co-working church combo in mind, because I think more people like you were thinking how do we intertwine these 2 things and the business model, right? The church, I'm sure there are things that go on at churches and other types of religious buildings during the week. But, and even you're sitting at, we'll out you, you're sitting at 25 North right now. And Mara mentioned the last time I was there, or Megan did, or somebody, that they have a Bible study that meets every week in one of their meeting rooms. And I think they have a church service in that main cafe area where the wall opens up and they project. And so super interesting.
It's a great fit. We're kind of complementary, because if you think about it, if they meet on Sundays, we're typically out of the space. So It's a great utilization of underutilized space on weekends.
Yep.
And then it's also, they're here building community and having events. So they need an office space. And often that's the hardest part to work during the week that they need. So it's a great fit. They're great customers. John created a nonprofit program at Fuse. And we work with some church partners and with people that are not necessarily just church ministries, but we work with a lot of different nonprofits that's near and dear to our hearts to do that. So it's a good fit. I think you can mix business and legacy and things for your community and your world a lot there. So
speaking of, what is y'all's kind of mission, vision, motto there at Fuse?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just what Mike said. I mean, we exist. I mean, our hospitality background, my ministry background and all that, it's a little bit of a bigger picture than just, I mean, we absolutely want to be profitable and make our stakeholders profitable and all that, but we do exist to do more. That's kind of our moniker, to do more. We exist to do more for our clients so they can do more for their clients, so that together we can do more to make our local communities and the world a better place. And every one of those is important.
Yeah, we actually, Jamie, we service mark the phrase "do more" as it relates to co-working. And for us, and it comes back to our name and what does Fuse mean, because we think that there's 2 things. When we say do more as it relates to co-working, we're here to help our members, our clients be more successful. What we realized when we started talking to people or potential customers is they're successful anyway. And it's our job to help them do more. It needs to provide an economic value for them. It needs to be a place that they feel energized. It needs to be all those things that we're all doing in co-work world. And so vitally important of space as a service. And so doing more for them. But to us, that also has that double meaning of doing more for our community and our world. And so it's really important to us. Our mission, as John says, we need to be profitable. That's our first and foremost job we have to do, or we'll stop doing more for everybody. But one of the things that we've kind of partnered to do is that we want to be a part of the community and give back. And so, you know, my wife and I, when we were building it, we said, this would be neat if for every new business we opened, if we worked with this group we partner with in Uganda and build a well. And so we've built 4 wells with Fuse so far, and going to do others as we add them. And the well is important to us. And we said, why a well? Because I got an opportunity to go over there to Uganda and work with this group. And that's where community happens. If you build a well out in a village in Africa, that is now the community center. That is the place. That is where they come. And regardless of what happens in the business world or whatever, but if we can provide a healthy thing for them, that's great. And then if we can tie our members into great causes like that and do those things, we felt like that will provide a more connectedness for our community, stickiness to our customers. But it also is just more fun. It's more fun to be a part of something bigger than just, hey, did we make our number this week? Or you know, something that's beyond ourselves, I guess, is the focus there. So
yeah, Mike, I was going to say, this is a platform for you to do some of the things that you can't do in the hotel space, right? Not a lot of room for, putting sort of your personal touch and values on that business.
Yeah, you know, in the hotel world, our customers are in and they may stay with us for a few days and they're gone. But this is so much more fun because, you know, hopefully they'll stay with us for years or grow their business or what have you. And we just get to know them on a deeper level. And if we can do stuff together, part of our community, man, it's just a much more rewarding experience. And so that I love versus just the straight hotel business, because we're more connected to our members for hopefully a lot longer time.
Yeah, and what I love about it is just kind of playing along the well side of it is, and funny enough, Mike and John and I have never had this discussion, but as we discuss this, I mean, I just think of the woman at the well, right? And how Jesus basically goes after someone that is a sinner, right? And he actually sends his apostles away so that he can minister to her. And so the interesting part about what we all get to do in our workspace to serve people, right? Whether they have the same belief system as we do, or whether it be religious or political or anything else, we get to serve those people and love them where they're at. And, you know, I think that's something that the Fuse team does really, really well. And they don't do it out in the open outright. I think this is a good opportunity to kind of talk about Bible studies, which we kind of touched on. But I mean, Mike, your original conversations about having those things, you want to share those?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to get into deep theology here, which I'll defer to John, but the story of the woman at the well, if you go back to that story, other people shunned her, right? And they didn't want to hang around her for whatever reason. But the example Jesus taught in that parable, or what happened in that story is, you know, he loved on that person right where they were and where they were at, and regardless. And so John and I's views and our beliefs and what we focus on just at a deep personal level for us, I'm happy to share that with anyone that wants to listen to it. But at the same time, there are other people that have different views than me, and we're going to meet them right where they're at and love them, and they're welcome to be a part of our community and our Fuse business and all of that. And so we're trying to build a community. This is very important to us. And so we did on the well part, I had a group, it's called Grace Bridge, and they feed the suburban poor, which is really a very difficult and challenging thing, because you think about it, they're out in these rural areas or further out in the community centers. Well, they're a long way from food banks. They're a long way from opportunities. So a friend of ours, Carter Morris, created a thing called Grace Bridge, and that was his local charity. And then he had Master Cares that was building a school and hospital in Uganda. And so on the local level, it's that food drive. It's that taking care of our local community. And, I don't want to get, overly on that, but, shoot, we partnered with the SPCA in Austin, which was awesome. So, I mean, they're just things that our groups can get excited about. And it makes it a lot of fun. There's a lot of things to talk about. And, at Thanksgiving time, raising food or back to school backpacks. And so many co-work companies are doing things like this. And we just think that's important. And it's a way to connect. I think about times when I did Habitat for Humanity and I got to know people back when I was in the telecom days, and I worked with groups, and they spend a day working and you really connect with somebody on a lot deeper level. So anyway, I think there's a lot of reasons why we should be doing that. And it's been great. And it's part of our company ethos. It's part of our community managers and general managers get behind it because they are excited about a cause greater than ourselves. And then our members hear, what we're all about. And so I think it's a good work.
Mike, and I love the conversation you had with Carter when you were planning to do the Bible studies. You want to talk about that?
I have a lot of conversation with Carter, usually about duck hunting and things like that. But
where he basically said that you didn't have to be public about it.
Well, now what I was looking at, a friend of ours, Carter, does this, and he provides chaplain services for businesses, and John's a chaplain for police and fire department, which is great, and they have a real need. But I said, Carter, how do we do this and provide a chaplain? And he said, man, it doesn't have to be a formal program. Let's just open up and have some Bible studies, offer these things to be able to help others. And so they don't always have to be a formal program. I read a quote, once Marcus Lemonis talked about being on a cause, and he said, people like to buy products from people they know. And when they know what your cause you're passionate about, they'll get to know you all that much better. And so I think it's a way to connect, because I love talking to people about work. I can go on and on about that. But at the same time, tell me what you care about. Tell me what you're interested in or passionate about. And we can connect on a deeper level on that aspect. So it's important. And it's also, we all sell widgets, right? We all space or widgets or something or a service. And I had a boss tell me one time, don't fall in love with the widget. It's just a business. But beyond that, what's more fun is what's going on in your family, what's going on in your world and your community. And those things they're more long lasting than this business we're all going to retire from it someday. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on widgets and services. So.
John, I'm curious about how the values kind of play into recruiting. Do you find, is it something you focus on when recruiting? Does it help attract folks who want to be part of something with some meaning? Like how do you how does that look?
Yeah, when we share with our potential team members our corporate ethos, and it seems like if they have that heart, that's an immediate attachment. In fact, I've had several that have gone on our website and looked at it fully and said, I applied to you because you have this corporate ethos and you're really doing it. And so that's actually helped us attract talent, which is kind of cool. But we do talk about principles, Jamie, more generally that could or just good life principles, no doubt about it. A lot of them come from the Bible, of course, but they're not chapter and verse, like we talk about excellence in our daily tasks. That's actually a biblical concept, but it's good for business, right? To be excellent in our daily tasks, right? Exceeding goals and expectations, going the extra mile. That phrase extra mile is actually a biblical phrase. Most people don't know that, but that actually comes from the Bible. That's from Jesus, where in the Roman world, an occupied country, essentially, Romans could compel a citizen to carry a Roman soldier could compel a citizen to carry his pack for a mile. But that's it. It was only 1 mile. Then you had to drop it. You could drop it and go about your business. And people in the occupied countries hated that. They hated it. You're off doing something and you have to carry this guy's pack and you don't like him already. Jesus came along and said, not only carry that pack 1 mile, you carry it 2. And it's just showing a heart of servant, being a servant. And so that is, we don't quote chapter and verse on that, but we do talk about it. Exuding happiness and gratitude is another corporate ethos. We just feel like it's much better to be a happy person than being exuding sadness and angst and all that kind of stuff. And then extending grace and truth. That's another phrase. Grace and truth comes from the Bible. We don't quote it chapter and verse, but again, these are all great business principles. And I think everybody would agree to all those things. But that is kind of who we are. And when we state those as clearly as we do, and we back it up with, for example, we want our team members to be involved in the community. So we'll talk about, how have you demonstrated this? How are you a part of a nonprofit? Who have you served? How have you served? And then we back that up even further by giving our team members days off during the year to go serve that nonprofit or a nonprofit. So they're actually leading by example, which we think is real important.
Yeah, John took our hotel PTO policy, and let's add a service time off day as well. And just, go do it. We don't care what it is and whatever service thing that's, working for you. And just, if you're going and doing it, great. We think that recharges them. It gives them an opportunity to give back. And it's been a terrific program. So something that we just want them to focus on too. And we got such good people. They're usually involved in a lot of things already. So.
Well, I was going to say, you probably attract folks who already have an affinity for that, which just aligns with your values really easily. Gio, I started listening to the Nordstrom Way because we interviewed Jamie Hodari on Friday, and he mentioned that book. So of course I stuck it on my Audible, and they talk about some of the same things, that around recruiting, which is that they just like really naturally attract people who align with their service values, and you can't train that, right? You can't really train that into somebody. So you really have to filter the folks who already have it, and then grow it and encourage it like you're doing. And I think that's super interesting today, when it's not that easy to recruit folks to a physical place, where they are in service of members. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of giving. It takes a special personality that really thrives, I think, under those conditions. And so you're sort of like tying in this natural affinity for that, which is unique.
John talks about there's this greeting them with hello and then a goodbye, and then in between we're serving them in there. He's phrased it much better than I have, but there are people that just have a heart for service. They're just, you're around them, you can feel it within a few minutes, and whatever business it is, and we all go into those businesses and there's somebody connecting there with us, and we just say, wow, love that place because of that person's heart for service. And we've got tremendous staff that just have that, and it comes from a mindset. It's not, we're looking for that value, and it's important, and it's service to others above self, immediately. And if they're doing that, it can't be taught, but it can be encouraged, and it can also be discouraged by filling them up with busy work and paperwork sometimes, where we're taking away that opportunity to do that. So it's been really important. And I have some hotel friends, and we both kid about it. You can stand in a front desk or a lobby area of a hotel, and within about 2 or 3 minutes, you can feel it. Does this hotel have it or doesn't? And we've all stayed at those places where, they're all kind of similar, right? There's an AC hotel here versus an AC hotel here. They're going to look similar, but it's that connection with that service that's so far beyond. And that's where someone will return. They will return because of someone's there. Yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah. The hospitality side of the business, I think all three of you heard me say before, I can tell within 30 seconds whether a space is successful or not when I walk in. And that's purely based off of how the lobby looks and how I'm greeted, right? So much of that ties back to the hotels, right? I've used the example of the Holiday Inn, right? You walk in, there's typically someone behind the desk, but they're texting and their shirt's disheveled, and they're going to hand you a key and you're going to go up to your room. But it's not the same as walking to the Four Seasons or the Ritz, where you get greeted by the valet guy, you ask your name. By the time you get to the front desk, he's already radioed over what your name is. They walk out from behind the desk, they greet you, they tell you, hey, but we welcome back. We know that you like to be away from the elevator, so we have a high floor away from the elevator. Your room's already set at the temperature you like. Your favorite bottle of wine or water, whatever is already in the room. And so it's very much service oriented. And I think that makes a big difference in success in our field, right? And I brought this up on our interview with Jamie the other day, right? Typically those are smaller to medium size local or regional operators. But some larger ones can pass it on, but it's a lot easier to do on a smaller scale.
Yeah, in the hotel world, I started in 2001 in hospitality in the hotel world. The gold standard when we're surveying our customers is the intent to return and the intent to recommend. And that intent to recommend is so much more personal, right? And that what I've said all along, especially when COVID happened, I just wanted to get through a podcast and not discuss COVID. but during that time, I mean, what we worried about was, let's just make fans. If we can make fans, and a fan is someone who will recommend you, because that's so much more personal, right? I may intend to return to that place because it's convenient, because it works well for me, and it works for me. I come back, right? And they provided good service. But if I have an intent to recommend, meaning I'm willing to recommend your business, then I'm willing to put my reputation on the line and say, hey, go check this place out. It's great. I love these people. And it's usually not because, wow, the decor on the wall was awesome. It's because these people are awesome. They take care of me. They're so good. And I'll recommend them because I become fans. And so, what we've been focusing on is just building fans instead of customers. We're not selling space. We're selling a service, but really what we're in the business of doing is creating fans. And so if we can create fans in that aspect, and all the things that John's doing to build an excellence and to deliver that high class service, business will take care of itself. If you have fans that are passionate about you and what you're doing, it will take care of itself. So that's the hard part. It's not that hard to build a pretty building. I mean, although we're at a great place today. We work with our friends at 25 North, Mara and Kelly, and they do an awesome job. And I don't mean to mean it, but what was really hard long-term is providing that great service and touching those people every day. You got to do it 365 days and all day long to be successful in that. So we've got great people that are helping us out with that every day.
So speaking of creating fans, the three of you have children, and y'all are all great fans of your children. Like, I'll tell you, Jamie and I, there's things that Jamie and I can and can't do, because if not, her daughter reprimands her, and then we got to censor and delete. And so we're extra careful. And Mike, I mean, you've got two amazing children that are talented. And so you guys want to talk about your families. I mean, John, you the same, right? But I think that's such a big part that says a lot about people, is how do they parent?
Wow. Well, I don't know. You asked my 18-year-old daughter how I parent. Some days better than others. So that's a loaded question there, Gio. Be careful with that. But John and I met early on because our kids were in the same school and we were doing things together in that aspect of it. But that is the most important. When we talked to our community managers, John was just trying to arrange tickets for a community manager or general manager just a few minutes ago. And her daughter's at A&M, so she likes to talk about that and sports and what her kids are into. And so my kid's into music and theater and all that. So it's a lot of fun to see that aspect of it, what's going on. So I don't know how we parent. We gosh, Gio, man, I may need a couch into
totally. I hear you.
Every day, Gio. I don't know. I'm doing pretty well with my Labrador Retriever. He's doing well, but very
well. You're selling yourself short. But I mean, Jamie, his daughter's in theater, and Mike has put sets together, has broken down sets, gone to the same performance 5 nights in a row, right? Listened to all kinds of practices and all kinds of stuff. So don't sell yourself short on that. And then he takes his son Harrison with him on tours, and he kills our deals before we even have a chance to negotiate. That was I showed up on a Saturday with Mike early in our friendship, and to look at deals. And he said, "Can H come?" And I said, "Yeah." I brought my big Bronco, so I thought that would impress him. So number one, I stopped and got him donuts and chocolate milk and all kinds of stuff. Mike, you want to finish that story?
Wait, how old is he?
I think he was 10 at the time. and or 11, and Gio took us to see this building, and we were touring it with the guy, and I asked the guy as soon as we started walking, I said, were you involved in the development? He said, oh yeah, I designed it. I worked on this, or it has a lot of pride and ownership. So I was like, okay, let's be kind here. But there weren't many windows. It wasn't working for us real quickly. You know, I was like, okay, let's get the tour with and over with. And Harrison or Gio turns to us and said, Mike, what do you think? And Harrison just goes, no deal, no deal. It's bad, you know. It's, no windows. It's bad. There's my 10-year-old who usually never says a word, but he was like, "Let's cut to the chase. Gio, you did terrible. We're out of here." So we loved it. So Gio, Harrison was shutting that deal down. So you gotta love that. So he's Gio's toughest critic. So
yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. And John, you're a big fan of your kiddos. You want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how co-working and my family intersect. But yeah, I've got 3 that are spread out over, I can't even think about how many years now, maybe 8 years. So we still have 1 in the house, 2 that have launched, so to speak. One of my kiddos works for the Salvation Army, believe it or not. So in Fayetteville, Arkansas, she just got married. It's neat to see her kind of carry on that legacy. She went through a rough patch, no doubt, and was kind of making her faith her own, and, you know, owning it or not, and had a great experience in university. And now she's working for a nonprofit. I couldn't be any prouder either way, but that's kind of cool. But my middle kid is 21, and he kind of struggled. School wasn't his thing, really. He went to college 1 semester, didn't even finish the semester, was changing tires and doing oil and wondering, and there's nothing, blue collar work like that is absolutely laudable, and I applaud men and women that do that kind of work. But he had a passion for computers. He wanted to do computers and went out and got a certification that's hard to get, was struggling to find traction in it. I was sitting at Fuse and Prosper one day, and I have this, we had this member there that does encryption consulting worldwide with a large team in India. He comes downstairs one day and says to me, I talked to him about my son before. He said, does your son, is he still looking for a job or an internship? And I said, yes, he would love that. He said, well, he's hired. Have him call me on Friday. That was like 8 months ago. He's been on trips by himself to, for example, Washington, D.C. to do an install. He loves what he's doing. He loves, this is his moment. And I go back to that because of what happens in a community. Like, that guy knew that I had a son that was interested in exactly what this gentleman did. And because we had that conversation, an opportunity came along, pretty much a one in a million type of opportunity for my kid. So that's the beauty of co-working. That's the beauty of Flex. It's what happens in that community, and that you can talk about your kids, and you can see what happens outside of business. And I can't remember, Jamie, if it was on your deal or Gio's LinkedIn or somewhere, but I read a couple statistics. It could have been from Juicy, actually, where I think Liz posted that 86% of people in co-working do things outside of the community together. And I thought, now that's it right there. That's when you know that your community is really humming along. And I've seen that happen in our buildings, where I was in Austin about a month ago, and this 5 guys were in our conference room. They were whiteboarding together. None of them knew each other before they came over to Fuse. None of them did the same thing, but there was just that entrepreneurial spirit mixed with community, mixed with, hey, let's come up with some ideas, or let's help each other out. And so that actually has had effect even on my family, Gio, which is really cool. And we take my kids to all of our locations. They all help with the install. They've all helped move desks around, Jamie, and you know how it is. You know, it's all hands on deck, and we kind of do this as a family. So it's been wonderful to involve your family in your business, as they were with my previous careers. I mean, that's just how we've done life. You know, they buy in, and my wife is very apt to say, if I say I need to go down to Austin today, she's, go. I mean, do your thing. You know, I fully support you, and that's wonderful to have that when family mixes with what you do, because it's what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Oh, wait, hold on. I was just going to say, I love these stories that you share. That could have been your son or anybody's son, and the whiteboarding scene. And I'm guessing that's part of what like your vision was when you saw this happening. Like what could happen outside of the church building, outside of like people coming together one day a week that could be more meaningful. And you're seeing it transpire, which has got to be really just gratifying.
Yeah, and I think that's the awesome part about it is what can things be if we allow it to be, right? I mean, look, my lunch with Mike while I was at Regis, by a random connection, I mean, they've grown to be some of my closest friends, and I go to Mike's daughter's performances, and it's funny, as COVID started, Mike, or right before COVID, Mike's like, hey, we have this Bible study at on Friday mornings, and it's way up north in the sticks where they live, so it's about a 40-minute commute for me. And I'm like, all right, what time is it? It's 6:30 a.m.
Oh my God.
So
no way.
So I wake up at 5:15, 5:30, like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? But you know what? I trust Mike. I like Mike. Let me go build friendship and rapport and everything else. Well, there I go, half asleep. I think I might have remembered to brush my teeth that morning. So I show up, we walk in, and where do we sit? We sit at the table with like all the pastors from the church. So I'm just like, not only you drag me up here at 6:30 in the morning, but I'm not even being my A game.
Got to be your best geo.
Right, exactly. Which we know how that works. So luckily they love black sheep as well as white sheep at the church. But it's just been amazing just to see how that's evolved. And then John was brought on and everything. But again, that's such a great example that, I mean, they came down to seek John out because they knew his son was looking for the opportunity, right? And how awesome is that from John's standpoint? Because John was able to meet and love. He and I had several conversations where he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, you just got to love him through this, right? Let him deliver pizzas. He'll figure it out on his own. And to have those doors open to the community you've built is huge.
For sure.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, you think about it, Flex Workspace has built such an opportunity for that. So many of us, John came to me early on and we opened up, and there was a couple of guys that had been laid off, and John was like, hey, look, can we just park them down there and co-work, which was great. And so they were able to network. And, I've been through that situation when a business shut down and I was looking for work, and the most depressing spot to be is
at home by yourself, all up in your head, like,
just miserable.
Yeah.
And so come do community. And so, it's an opportunity to encourage one another, but then get that networking out there with other opportunities to, let me try this, let me try that. And what's so much fun about the Flex Workspace business to me is just when you walk the halls, when you are at a community event and you realize somebody's into just something you've never even heard of or thought about as a business or a nonprofit, and how interesting that can be. And then to network with them. And, John and I have a customer once, I always tell the story. They're like the Uber of the towing business. They created this business, and it's a great business, and he's doing a great job. But to me, that's just fascinating to walk through and then connect. And, I've got a co-working guy who called me and needed an office one time, and he had done securitized debt financing on a hotel 8 years earlier. And so we connect, and so anyway, it's just fun to see all these different opportunities in here to network and be a part of other people's businesses and what's going on. And so that's the fun of this industry, which we don't get that if we're at home all by ourselves or in some siloed office building where we only do this widget, right? And so how boring, but what an opportunity to be in a place with this industry and see what's going on and what's happening in your world and learn from them. So it's been great.
I have 100 more questions to ask, but we're almost at time. I have to ask one though. The banks. So you talked, first location was mostly Flex.
Right.
Is this because you have a great relationship with the, banks that have funded hotel development, or how did you talk them into that? And has that, been challenging on the next locations? Well, so you're buying and then you're building out. Are all locations more Flex than not? Or talk a little bit about that, because I know lots of people listening be curious about that.
Yeah, our first building model and yes, we have a banking relationship, been in business with for 20 years, financed every project that we've done. And a lot of our hotels have been ground up construction, new build. And that's what our first office building project was. And it was an interesting, deal. If you go back, when I was pitching it to the bank, WeWork was on their, rocket trajectory back then, and they were the hottest thing since sliced bread. And so explaining it to them, and I think I did one business pitch to them, and it was when WeWork was hot, and literally, like 3 weeks later, the meltdown happens, and so I literally had one of the bank executives call me and said, "Now, Mike, you had a lot of reference to WeWork in there," and I said, "Scratch all that,
delete."
Let's delete that aspect
Yeah.
of it. But so it was a good relationship. But what we explained was that, and don't want to knock WeWork, right? Because they have made so much happen in all of our industry to validate it, to build and prove that there is a customer base there. Now, there's other issues on their side of the business that we all have to work through. But I'm thankful to them for how they built the awareness and the drove customers. And so that was an aspect of it we had to teach. And so coming back to the bank, it was the conversation on the first building. When I first went in and pitched it to them, they said, "Now, okay, you're going to have all these flex workspace customers." And my bank has done business with them for 21 years. They're from a small rural area in Arkansas, probably the fourth or largest bank in Arkansas, but I'd just done business with them for a long time. But they did not know what co-working was. They'd never seen one. I don't think there was, maybe in a couple of Regis's in Little Rock or something, but these guys weren't familiar with that. So we had to educate them. And I also had some investors in my hotel world. And we were fortunate at the time. We had sold a business. So I literally just didn't raise equity on that deal because I couldn't explain it. And I couldn't, it was one of those things that I was like, man, I hate to even pitch this to these guys because I'm not sure. I'm learning this as I go. And so we didn't take investors. DPG did the deal. And but now going forward, talking about the banks, our new buildings are just 100% flex workspace. They've gotten a little smaller than that 40,000 square feet, but 30s are our wheelhouse target.
30. Okay.
But we're doing that almost 100% flex. And so the bank understands it. To them, my bank, because the hospitality experience, understood that I'm going to open up empty, but I've got to ramp it for a period, and that takes them a little bit of time. And so they understood that. But in this banking environment, when interest rates are up, 60%, and we're raising, I was borrowing on the Prosper building at 4%, and now it's 7.5%. Good luck with that. So there are changes in this world that are happening that are very difficult to underwrite, but it's a challenge. We'll all get through it and see what happens next on there.
So here comes the questions, Jamie. There's a smile. So I firmly believe that behind every great man is an even greater woman. So John, we're going to start with you. So what are your favorite things about Ronnie and your relationship that allows for you to do what you do?
Man, I appreciate the question because she is absolutely the great, other than my faith. I mean, she is the rock in my life. We've been married for 27 years now. Yeah, she fully supports me and loves what I dream about. And sometimes it takes her a minute to get on board. It didn't take her a minute to get on board with this one, though. Because it was just such a passion, and she had seen it, I think, over the years. But she's so supportive. I travel a lot, Gio, as you probably know, not as much as you. But since we don't have any Dallas offices now, I'm down south quite a bit, and she fully supports me, and that just makes me feel like I can be fully what I need to do to make this business successful. And we share very deeply our faith. Obviously, we love to serve, and we go to church religiously, as they say. we don't miss many, and we don't want to. I mean, we love being with the community of faith. So yeah, thank you for the question, Gio. She fully backs me and tells me how proud she is of me. And occasionally she asks me, does Mike really kind of still believe that you can do this? I mean, you didn't get trained for this, And I was like, well, I kind of did, but yeah, anyway, it's kind of funny.
So Mike, now yours changes, and Mike gets to reach deep in his heart sometimes, and I love it. So the opposite for you is, what would Tamara say about you that's made you successful and such a great husband, boss, and just overall servant leader?
Well, you're assuming that she'd say those great things about me.
I know she would.
So, I don't know what she'd say about me, other than, she has a lot of patience, so to put up with a lot of the ideas that I come up with. But Tamara's my partner and my best friend, and we've been married 22 years now. Yeah, we were married in 2001, so that's right, 22. Let me get it right. I don't want to mess it up. She'll watch this. But when she and I first got married, I was in some telecom startups and had been through kind of a wild ride. And I remember going back to about my company wound up going to SBC or AT&T at the time, and was just miserable after I wound up there after been through startup days, and going to her and just saying, hey, I've got this idea for a business, but honey, here's the situation. My pay is going to be cut in half here to launch this new investment. In fact, and it may be like that for a year or two. And but her faith and just saying, hey, this is what we want to do. This is important to us. And she was she was the vice president and account director for one of the world's largest media and advertising companies. And so she was a power player in her own right. And so her patience, I guess, and faith that we're on the right path here has been awesome, and couldn't have done it without her. And so she's a great partner in there. So she wouldn't say anything good about me, but but she might. But I'm very thankful to have her in my corner. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I'll say this, that in both areas that really matter, Mike is successful. He is a very successful entrepreneur, and he's very successful at home. That's my testimony.
Wow. Thank you, man. Thank you. That's good stuff.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hope Tamara does watch this episode.
Yeah.
We'll send her the link.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you exactly. So on their anniversary, August 25th, she said, still celebrating being married, the love of my life, 21 years later. Can't wait to see what God has for our next 20 plus years. You're my greatest gift and blessing, Mike. I love you.
Wow. Okay. Well, she does say very nice things about it. I think a lot of times it's to help me to believe some of those good things too. So that's good. Thank you, Gio, for mentioning the good things she says.
Okay, Gio, I think we have to let these guys get back to it. We should do this again because, like I said, I have many follow-ups on the threads that we started. It was a pleasure. Gio, thank you for making this happen. And you guys have a lot going on. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And let's please do it again.
You bet. Thank you, Jamie. It was awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.